Hey everyone, welcome to a new video. Welcome to my channel. My name is Maaike and today we are talking about how to best pick a foundation shade. This video is part of my makeup basics series, and I don't know about you, but when I first got into makeup, I definitely struggled finding how, just to make sure that a foundation looked nice on me, and that all starts with the shade match. So I definitely also wanted to feature that. So today I have 5 tips for you that I look for when I pick a foundation shade, because I definitely had a couple of mishaps. Even if I went into store to try something on, I still wouldn't be entirely sure, and I would get home and I was like, oh, I'm not sure it's really right for me. So I'm gonna talk you through how I do it. Tip number 1 is definitely to go into store to try the foundation out. I personally like to see a foundation, feel a foundation, and also see how it matches me in store before deciding anything. I don't think I've ever bought a foundation online without trying it first. I definitely always had a shade match. Even for the ones that I bought from Sephora, I would first oh, I happen to go to the US anyways, let's get shade match, and then I can order it later on. So that's how I've always done it, and that's definitely also what I did with 2 of the newest foundation releases. This was released, of course, in August. This is the Urban Decay Stay Naked foundation, and this is the Makeup Revolution Conceal and Hydrate foundation. I'm trying these 2 out this month, so that's why I wanted to feature them in this video. I have this one in the shade 20NN, and the reason why I wanted to talk about this foundation is because Urban Decay has started doing 2 different types of undertones. So they have a master tone and then an undertone, which is what the NN stands for. So mine is, the shade is 20, and then neutral, that's what the N stands for. I believe they even have some greenish undertones in here for olive tone skin tones, and then they have like your standard pinks and yellow undertones. I also tried CP, which is cool pink, which was a bit too pink on me, which is why I am more neutral in my undertone to begin with. So that's why I decided to go with 20NN, which if you put it next to CP, 20CP, it looks a lot more yellow. But then if you put it next to the warm toned 20 foundation, then that's even more yellow toned, I feel. So a neutral tone foundation is what I like to go for, but I would definitely go into store, and I thought I was going to be 20NN just by looking at swatches and the shade matcher on Urban Decay's website, but then it was great to have that confirmed to me when I got to the store. Makeup Revolution's foundation I did buy off of the website without trying it first, but that's because I already own the Conceal and Define foundation in this line, and that I did find in store because I love the concealer from that line. So I actually went into store in London and swatched the concealer against the different foundation shades and found out that I'm F2. And since Makeup Revolution does the same shade range in every single one of their conceal and products, it was very easy for me to find out what shade I needed in this foundation. And this is the foundation that I'm wearing today, in case you were wondering. So yeah, this is F2. Tip number 2 is that you do need to find out what your undertone is, because a lot of brands have only one undertone. It's starting to become a lot better, and a lot of brands seem to be doing different undertones now. And I have 2 foundations here again to sort of showcase what I mean by this, knowing your undertone. I think the brand that has been doing undertones since the beginning and was one of the very first brands to do it is, of course, MAC. I have their water weight foundation with SPF 30, and I have mine in the shade NC15. I find that their NW range often doesn't go light enough for me, even though that is the more cool toned one. So if you don't know what NC and NW stand for, NC is not cool and NW is not warm. So NW is if you have a cooler undertone, NC is if you have a warmer undertone. But because this goes lighter, and because it's always better to have a slightly more yellow tone to your foundation than a very pink one, this did look best on me when I was shade matched. So don't get too hung up on the undertone. And the reason why I have a really big, I have a hard time matching myself to MAC foundations and concealers, because I have a neutral undertone. So I'm like right smack in the middle. And the way I know that is because just a lot of different colors look really good on me. So not just makeup wise, but you know, even though I find a blue toned red more flattering on myself, I can get away with an orange toned red if I want to, you know, with the right makeup. I can wear mustard yellow, but you know, so there's just a lot of different colors that work on me. So that's definitely a way to test that, is to just try on different colors, clothing wise as well, to see what sort of lifts your complexion and doesn't drain you or make you look crazy. You can also look at the veining in your arms. Mine is pretty much non-existent, which is, I think, another telltale sign. But if your veining pools more green toned, then you tend to have a warmer undertone. And if they pool very bright blue, you have a cooler undertone as well. I think that in terms of drugstore foundations, there aren't a lot of foundations that have different undertones, but in the Maybelline Dream Urban Cover foundation, they do have a really nice range. And for instance, they have fair, and then within fair, they have different categories. So I went with the lightest one, which is Fair Porcelain, which ended up being a touch too light on me. But there were no testers at the time, so I couldn't really try it in store, so that was a bit of a shame. But where some foundations can oxidize a little bit darker than they first appear on your skin, this almost when it like dries down, it doesn't really dry down, but when it settles down, it sort of pulls a bit lighter almost. So this goes the other way. And for such a full coverage foundation, that's a bit of a shame, but with bronzer, I can still make it work. So my third tip is to try, if you can, to get a tester. Now, of course, in the drugstore, this may be very difficult, but for higher end foundations, it's definitely possible. Not only will that allow you to actually test it on your skin and see, you know, does this actually look good on me? But if you have a tester that you can use at home and you apply it yourself, you can also check it in different lighting settings like that you run into when you go to work, and see how it really wears on your skin as well. Because sometimes, of course, as foundation wears throughout the day, it can start looking a little bit differently. And also the shade, because foundations can oxidize, can not look the same. So it's helpful if you have a tester to try and see what it looks like in your day-to-day life, and then you can really see how you can apply it best too. I did that for the YSL All Hours foundation. In fact, when I decided to purchase this with a gift voucher that I had last year, the store was so kind to give me a tester, and so I wouldn't have to open the real foundation. Over here, we cannot exchange makeup once it's been opened. So that's why, yeah, once you've used it, you're stuck with it. And since this is such a pricey product, what the store did was give me a tester so it could have like 2 or 3 tries at home before I decided to commit to such a pricey foundation. It happens to be one of my favorites, so that's a good thing. And I also found some minis of the Benefit Hello Happy foundation at Sephora over the summer. We don't get a lot of these like travel mini size products here, I'm afraid, but at Sephora, they do them in their little aisle of doom towards the tills, and I was able to pick up 2 trial sizes of both different Hello Happy foundations. This happens to be the Soft Blur, and I just think it's really nice and dinky. It only has 6 mils of product, so I think this is like 3 or 4 applications in total, but in that case, you can try the foundation and really see if you like it and whether the shade 2 that I have this in is right for me. I think it's a bit too dark. I think if I were to buy a full size of this, I'd need shade 1. Tip number 4 then, when you get shade matched, definitely make sure that you test it in the right way. I always like to put a foundation on the back of my hand just to get a general idea between different shades. But when it comes to actually seeing if it will match, I always need to apply it here. I don't have much of a jawline, so my foundation needs to fade quite nicely into my neck, and my neck, as you can see here, is quite fair. So that's why I need to make sure that that matches much better. I can always apply a bit more color into my face using bronzer, highlight, blush, and all that. It's easier, I find, if your foundation is a bit too light to make your makeup look nice than when your foundation is too dark and you've already applied it. And that also comes into like buying foundation. I think it's very important, especially if you get matched at a counter. Don't just be happy with whatever the sales consultant is trying to get you to buy. Definitely put your foot down. I had that problem with this Clinique foundation that I bought. The lady was a lot darker than I am, and she didn't have, for some reason, she didn't have the ability to see that whatever she put on the back of her hand would not look good on me. So I definitely asked her, like, please, can I see it on? Because I think that this shade is a bit better for me, and it ended up working quite well. I definitely also change shades and types of foundation in the season. You will sometimes see people who have like different shades in the same foundation. I don't do that because I tend to reach for different foundation shades in different times of the year as well. So that's why for something like this is the Even Better Glow. It's a really nice, luminous, lightweight foundation. I love this post-summer when I tend to be at my darkest. So that's why it's okay if I had this in a something that was a hair too dark for me, mainly in like the winter time. But then for the winter time, I like something quite fair. And then this is a very hydrating, super like juicy, hydrating foundation that I really like to use in the winter time, because this is really, really nice if you have quite dry skin as well. So I like to pick foundation shades depending on how I feel I'm going to use that foundation. If you're an avid self-tanner, then you may need several shades of the same foundation, but I don't self-tan, so I don't need that. So that's why you tend to have one foundation in one shade, and I just use the foundation at the time that it matches me, and usually that's okay. Tip number 5, but what if you did buy a foundation and it didn't match you? I have had that issue with several foundations, mainly at the drugstore. Max Factor or CoverGirl is notorious for having a really, really atrocious shade range, at least over here. I believe this foundation only comes in 4 shades. I'm holding up the lightest one. It's about 5 shades too dark for me. And when they first released the Milani Conceal and Perfect foundation, this foundation only came in like 001 Light, was like the lightest one, I believe. And it was much too yellow toned and much too dark for me. So I'm very happy that this finally came out in a lighter shade. This hasn't, but it's a lovely foundation. So what if it is too dark or too light? Get yourself a foundation that is either darker or lighter. In my case, that means I need to go in with a white foundation. So I have the LA Girl Pro Coverage foundation for this, mainly because it was an affordable white foundation that I could use. This is one that I use with foundations when they do end up too dark. Currently, I only have one foundation that is too dark, which is this one. So that's lovely. All of my other foundations are a match. So I don't really need to use this a whole lot anymore, because I do find it quite tricky, because I do feel that I get a different shade every single day because of how much you use and then how you blend it in and all that jazz. But if you want to darken a foundation, then getting a darker shade or getting darkening drops, which is also done by certain brands as well, you can custom mix your foundation shade if you need to. So I do feel that brands are getting better at catering more to different skin tones, so that you don't have to mix a whole lot, which is a really nice development. Now all brands just need to make sure they do an all-inclusive shade range so that everyone can find their shade. That would be lovely. So thank you very much for watching. This is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please give it a thumbs up if you did. Subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more by me. I do one of these makeup basics videos once a month, roughly. That's when I try to do them, and I make new content 3 times a week. So if you'd like to see more by me, then please stick around. I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!